Apostle Tahar is in premiere mode. I highly recommend watching this video. And Esau's fucking with the feed, so I can't guarantee the video quality of this upload. As you know, Esau's being exposed as of lately, but hey, this could be the year, as Apostle Tahar is going into right now. So let me make sure that everything's working, because it already crashed. Yeah, okay, that looks good.
Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, HaKadosh. Anyway, I'm going to entitle this video Revelation 17:16, or verse 16. It's trending. We can be out of here at the end of 2026, the beginning of 2027. Let's hope that happens. I'll take 2027, but I would prefer 2026.
Yeah, same here.
But we know we're following the prophetic timeline, and a prophetic timeline to the deliverance and destruction in the kingdom. The chip has to be administered throughout the whole planet Earth. 95 to 98% of the population, which they say is 8 billion plus, 8.5 to 9 billion. There's a lot of people. So billions of people will have to be microchipped. And once that's accomplished, then everything's going to move super quick. So it behooves you, men that have been in this thing, and you think about leaving, you're just foolish. I was watching a video last night that was put up by the elder out of South Carolina, GMS, goes by the name of Manatas Akbar. He was talking about another brother elder of the Pittsburgh camp. They built it together, because I remember he was out there for a while, and the brother's been diligent for many years, and all of a sudden Manatas Akbar found out that he hadn't did videos, a video in 8 months. So he was inquiring with the other men in that camp what's going on. Oh, he just stopped doing it, whatever the case may be. Well, you see the prophecies coming to pass. This is when you don't lighten up, you tighten up. You should be doing more videos. You should get mad at yourself if you can only do 2 videos or 3 videos. And I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but like myself, if I only do two videos, depending on how long they are, in my mindset, I want to do a 3rd video. I want to do a 4th video. Because after this, when the kingdom comes, we don't have to prophesy anymore. We can rest all day tomorrow, as they say. But anyway, with all that being said, I just wanted to sort of land back off of this video. Put up by, here's the page. You can subscribe and be edified, a soldier of Yahweh, or Yahushai. And we ain't ashamed to call on Yahweh and Yahushai. Other guys are ashamed of it. They want to call on Christ, which that's Christianity. You pretty much y'all are Christians. I see a bunch of Christians.
Yeah, like
in Christianity.
Like COGIC.
Who they call on? Christ, or the Messiah, or the Jesus.
Yep, Church of God in Christ.
We know the Hebrew, but you got to get a Hebrew name, or you're a coon. You got to get rid of that coon name. But Jesus can keep a coon name. He can be he's only coon in the room. Anyway, so this video is entitled "Trump Warns NATO Without America, there would be no NATO. The 10 horns will hate the horde." Well, they already do. They've been hating the horde, but they really hate the horde now. This move that he's in the process of making is totally bonkers, man. The NATO, when you go to the history of NATO was formed as an alliance between X amount of nations from Europe after World War II. This was about 4 or 5 years after World War II. World War II ended in 45. NATO was established in 49. So we're talking 4 years after World War II. And ultimately, it was you had this, these allies come together or became allies just in case a major superpower, Russia, which in World War II, America and Russia were allies. So you had the Cold War with Russia and America. Now you have a Cold War with America and China. More of an economic Cold War. And this old saying is Cold Wars turn into hot wars, with gunfire, missiles being shot, and missiles will be shot. So they built this alliance known as NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. To combat, if any nation, mainly Russia, because Russia was a major military power, and still is. If Russia attacks any NATO nation, it was just like you attacking all NATO nations, alliances. So they all go up against, Russia in war. Because Poland could not fight against Russia. They get wiped off the face of the globe. They get wiped off the face of the map. Get pulled out the frame, so to speak. So they had to have this alliance, the importance of this alliance. So what do you do when one ally goes to another ally, both part of the NATO, when one attacks the other? What do you do about that? If anything, that becomes a police action. The spirit is in the air that, Trump wants to kind of attack. He wants to buy it for now. He wants to take it over. Now they're talking about purchasing it. So if he gave an order for troops to go in to Greenland, which is under the jurisdiction of Denmark, the other nations would be obligated that are part of the NATO alliance to attack that particular NATO nation, which is America. So this is really a stupid move, and I believe advisors told him, no, we can't attack them, on a military level. We just offer to buy it. So somebody talked to him behind the scenes, because he put his foot in his mouth. Anyway, Trump warns NATO, without America, there would be no NATO. Well, with NATO, there will be no America, because that's ultimately what's going to happen. They're looking at Russia, they're looking at China, they're looking at the nations that possess long-range missiles, ICBM missiles, but they're not looking at the NATO nations or the EU nations. That's why part of the title is, part of the title is Revelation 17:16 is trending. Then I also said, the full title, I said, we can be out of here in the 26, beginning of 27, or however I did it, said it. So anyway, I'm just going to let this, okay, this was 53, so okay, no comments. Was this put up as a live? Okay, let me just go ahead and play this. And I went to the chat. So Revelation 17 and 16 is definitely trending.
Hashem, Rakakwadash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that's for teaching this truth. And much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, beginning with 144,000, all the way down to the large multitude that believes, and who the Lord will deliver in these last days. To you all I say shalom. I'm the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another lesson, and I pray this lesson will be edifying to the elect. I want to do a quick lesson going in on this article that you see here on the screen. This is from zerohedge.com. All right, and the article reads, it says, Trump warns NATO, without America, there is no alliance. All right, let's read that again. It says, Trump warns NATO, without America, there is no alliance. All right, and you know how Trump is operating right now, you know, in the spirit. Okay, he's showing that he is the one that's written about. All right, in Daniel, the 7th chapter, where it says that he had a look that was more stout than his fellows. All right, let's get that real quick. This is Daniel chapter 7.
Yeah, he had to look more stout than his fellows. Is talking about America, the various presidents that blurred out orders to. America's behind everything. The UN is an American idea because that's why it's based in America, in New York. The League of Nations, D.C., New York, is where a lot of
and behind the 1948ers.
went out. So this is not just talking about Trump. It's talking about the system itself because Europeans have hated Babylon for the longest. That's a known fact. There was a movie called American Gigolo in Europe, and throughout it was a comedy. What's his name? Schneider. The comedy. It was a sequel to American Gigolo.
Yeah, European
America,
Gigolo.
whatever the name of the movie is. It was a comedy, but they had a part 2 to the movie in Europe. And when they were in Europe,
Deuce Bigelow, yeah.
the sentiment of the Europeans. They had T-shirts that said, "I hate America, fuck America." So that's been around. We're talking after World War II, and these are NATO nations that really hate America because of their stoutness, as the elder's going to read. The young elder is going to read. But Trump takes a cake. He's going to really cause them. Like I said, I'm going to say this again. The Europeans always hated America, especially after World War II. After they decided in the Bretton Woods Conference, you can read up on that. I'm not going to go into history. They came to the conclusion that America will be the new. It used to be Great Britain, the new world reserve currency. The confiscation of the gold, the Europeans had to give up their gold and get gold certificates. So they wanted their gold back. In 71, Nixon closed the gold window. So gold was no longer, how can I say, the dollar was not backed by gold or silver. Anyway, that's a whole nother lesson. Let's move on.
Let's see. More stout. Let me type it in real quick. Salakia. All right. This is Daniel chapter 7. Okay, I just went down a little bit too far. This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 19. It says, "Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast," which that fourth beast here, all right, is talking about the Roman Empire. All right, and we're living in a revival of the Roman Empire. All right, America, all right, which is the whore that rides upon the beast, and that beast, it represents NATO and the EU. Okay, so it says, "And I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped irresolutely with his feet," going into pretty much the military might of the Roman Empire. All right, and you see that same structure and the same Roman, or that same Roman military might, I'd rather say, with America being the hammer of the earth today. It says, "And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up," which the 10 horns represents the EU, these particular EU, these different EU nations, and the one that come up, that says, "And of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell." So the other that came up is talking about America. Okay, and before whom 3 fell, you have the French, you have the Spanish, and you have the British. Okay, you have the Spanish-American War, the Spanish-American War, the French-Indian War, and then what you have the American Revolution.
And it makes all the sense in the world. And Christians don't understand this. When you go to Revelation chapter 7, it's clearly talking about these European nations in America. You go to Daniel 7, and you go to Google, you say, what's the interpretation of Daniel 7, and they'll all tell you. No matter where you go, the pastors will even tell you. The ones that get into prophecy, they'll tell you that the first beast was Babylon, came out of the Syrian Empire. Second beast was Medo-Persian. Third beast was Greece. Fourth beast was Rome. It said the Ancient of Days sat. When did the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man come to the Ancient Days? When did that happen in the Roman Empire? 2000. It never happened. So there has to be an extension of the Roman Empire. And these scholars, they know that. They watch it, so they know. They know what we're saying is the truth. But Jake ain't gonna listen to us because with Jake, you know, Jake don't got a prophet is not honored in his own country, so to speak. But if Esau was to say it, they'll see it. They'll clearly see it.
Really established America in the foothold. All right, I'd rather say which really established America as a powerhouse. Okay, you had 13 colonies before that, and then you had the American Revolution that took place in half.
And why did this small group of 13 colonies become such a great nation? Because it's part of prophecy. Babylon the Great.
All right, it says that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. And when you get that word stout, okay, when you get that word stout in Hebrew, that word is rob, which means great, yep. Figurative of power. Okay,
I was going through this yesterday, and it's trending. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. If we're not talking about this, we're talking about the MOTB.
When you look at America, you know, Donald J. Trump, with Donald J. Trump being at the helm of America right now, which he's really under control, he was really placed to be the president. You can clearly see the pride of Esau's heart, as the scripture says, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock. You see whose habitation is high. Okay, these Edomites are 100% proud, man. Okay, you have them getting ready to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America, the semi-quincentennial that's going to be this year. Okay, you got Donald Trump wanting to host at the White House UFC events. This is near.
And that's stupid because if they didn't know anything, if you type in, you go to Google, maybe even if you go to the chat, but I know for Google, for sure in Google, if you put in what's the average lifespan of an empire, in America, the U.S. is definitely an empire, and it's due. Empire. The fact that it went in the what Trump is doing or Nero's doing is the same thing the Romans did. They showed you that in the movie Gladiator 2. They had the top general that they praised, but he was like he didn't like doing what he was doing, and they would take the Roman ships and they would go to a land and they would go to war. They would defeat the enemy. They would put the rest of them in a prison, and they would have to pay a tribute, and then this guy would say Rome declares this land as part of the empire. So that's what Trump is doing. He went down to Venezuela and he said, "We declare this is our land." He said, "This is our oil." He just boycotted that shit. And Russia's involved, and China's involved, because China has an ongoing deal with Venezuela. So what Trump is doing is blocking the oil from going to China, and he's gonna sell the oil to who he wants to. And people see, we see it because we represent the prophets. We believe that we're the prophets. And then when you go into these other Israel, now I'll give credit to IUIC. They go into a lot of prophetical stuff. I give them credit, but they don't understand the prophecies like we understand the prophecies. If they understood the prophecies like we understood the prophecy, they would agree with the fact that the mark of the beast is the microchip.
Yep. That's the main thing right there.
You're going to find out who the true prophets are. And I pray that I am. And this is why I say this. Because what if I fall off a month before the destruction comes? Then all the works go in the garbage. That's in the book of Ezekiel.
This is Nero back in the reincarnation, man. But the scripture says, it says pride comes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall, man. Okay, when you read the prophecies, all right, when you read in Revelation, all right, the 17th chapter, okay, Revelation chapter 17 in verse 15, it says, "And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." And this whore is talking about America. Okay, remember, America's a whore that's riding upon the scarlet colored beast. It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore." Remember, these 10 horns, all right, are these various different, that pretty much the allies of America.
Now I did the video yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. Now it went from 10 horns. It was originally 6, and it was 12. The official flag of the EU. You have one flag for the EU, and you have one flag for NATO. And NATO and EU nations are how can you say
intertwined?
Some of the NATO nations are EU nations, and vice versa. Like, for example, Turkey is not a part of the EU, but Turkey is a NATO, a nation that's part of the NATO alliance. So when it says 10 horns, the flag for the EU is actually 12 stars. But then when you got Great Britain and Ireland, which is two stars. You put in Ireland is part of Great Britain, so that's really 1 star. Portugal is part of Spain, so that's really 1 star. So it should really be 10 stars on that blue flag that filled the blue. And then you had other nations that joined in. So now you have, I believe I went through it yesterday, 28 nations. I believe you had 29 nations. The UK pulled out a couple of years ago, so it's 28 nations. So when you see the 10 horns, it's referring to the 28 nation alliance of EU. We've gone through this.
Chiefly NATO and the EU. It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire."
Those are the missiles. They're going to eat her flesh, going to take her resources, clean her out, and then burn her with fire. That's Obadiah 1, I believe it's the 7th verse.
And that fire is going to be by way of ICBM thermonuclear missiles, man. You're going to have NATO allies that are going to shoot missiles on America. You're going to have EU allies that are going to shoot missiles on America. You're going to have Russia that's going to be shooting missiles on America. China that's going to be...
Now, when you look up nations that possess ICBM missiles, or the equivalent of an ICBM missile, Russia, I believe Russia's top of the list. There's more missiles. Russia possesses more long-range missiles than America, if I'm not mistaken. They're almost about the same. You got Russia, you got America, you got China. I believe you got Pakistan, you got Iran, if I'm not mistaken. I went through this list before. You got, I believe, Israel. They do have missiles, but I don't know if they have long-range missiles. But among the EU, NATO nations, you have 2 nations that, on record, are part of the EU, NATO alliance. You have 2 nations that possess long-range missiles or missile system. That's France and the UK. When you do the research, it doesn't say about, and I was surprised it didn't mention Germany, unless they're going to build up missiles inside of the next 6 months or whatever. But there are enough countries out there that possess missiles, Russia, China, and so forth, that can take this place out, set this place ablaze. Because that's how this place is going. And you're going to see it in living color.
Yep, reminds me of the show In Living Color, like everything else. So this is one of his live lessons, so I suggest getting to that. And now I'm going to read some articles. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching the truth and sincerity. And a shout out to the Akims out there on the 4 quarters of the earth proclaim this truth. Rock of the Yahweh, Rock of the Yahweh Shai, Shem Rakakadash Rakatum. So we've been talking about this one too, about a famine of the word coming, right? You know, that they already are using AI to alter the message, but also they're looking to block everything, that they're planning to take over speech as we know it. And this event, this false flag event that happened in Alcatralia, aka Australia, has a lot to do with it. We know that this was a staged event, and because a lot of staged events are live action events, but they're all controlled, just like 9/11 was a staged event, so was this. Australia to hold Royal Commission inquiry into Bondi Beach shooting, which we know that whole thing was staged. Prime Minister announced wide-ranging Royal Commission into anti-Semitism weeks after 2 gunmen opened fire on a Zionist holiday event, So like everything else, though, they're going to go after your, so-called First Amendment, right? This is going to be a worldwide thing. This ain't just, in Australia. It's going to take place worldwide. They are going to clamp down on what you're able to say. They've already decided that this internet has been hurting them. You know, they knew that long ago, but they're looking to clamp it down now. Australia will hold the Royal Commission an inquiry into the mass shooting that killed 15 people at Bondi Beach. Prime Minister said Thursday as he faced public demands for answers. So like everything else, so, you know, this is a whole... And ISIS, they love to use ISIS. I mean, even though ISIS really stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services, you know, and has nothing to do with Islam, by the way, you know. It's an older Greek god to begin with, you know, and when you go into the whole ISIS thing anyways, but nonetheless, so, you know, everything's got to be ISIS, you know, because they used to say Al-Qaeda, but, you know, ISIS now sounds a little better, right? You know, Sahih Akram and his son Navid allegedly targeted Zionists attending Hanukkah celebrations near the beach in an ISIS-inspired attack on the 14th of December, the nation's worst mass shooting for 30 years, you know. Because, yeah, you know, over in Australia, most people don't even have guns, you know. So, you could, and if they don't have guns and these people were permitted to have guns, think about that. You know, these things are totally staged. Because I believe they took the guns away from the people long ago, and just most people don't even possess guns over there. Not like they do over here. So, like everything else, though, orchestrated chaos. You know, and, well, we already know that, you know, Trump is taking, you know, he's definitely holding on to his ball sack, you know, and, you know, getting more and more blunt and bold.
Watching the situation in Minneapolis. Got about a month
oh, yeah, you got another
you know, it's
ISIS shooting, too.
2020, which, of course, kicked off not too far from there in the 3rd Precinct of Minneapolis with George Floyd. I was there. I was on the ground. I saw this whole thing, and it's all orchestrated. So I would imagine that there is a false flag starting, some sort of a major riot.
Yep.
Minneapolis, once again, will be the epicenter of all of this, and then it'll flood out. If they haven't extinguished the flames yet, Portland might still be burning. That would be convenient for these people. I think Portland is actually still on fire. But Frankie Stocks is here for the news report.
Yeah, Trump says it's on fire, remember?
3 minutes are on the clock. Go ahead.
Yes, Stu, thanks. Speaking of Minneapolis, Tim Walz has already come out and is now threatening war against the federal government. Jacob Fry, the subversive little mayor there, he's come out and he's told ICE to get the F out of Minneapolis. They appear to be setting the stage here for exactly what they're saying, an orchestrated false flag style event, a clash potentially between local and state and federal authorities that then mixed up into all of that. You're going to have civilians all over the place. You're going to have a bunch of foreigners who've been thrown into the equation. You're going to have the wannabe communist militants who've been bussed in from all over the country and given those pallets of bricks and given those instructions and given those pre-made signs that they always have just ready to go, right? Today already on the streets in Minneapolis, people were holding pre-made signs saying, ICE, get out, ICE this, ICE that, and they were all ready to descend on the area where this shooting happened immediately after it happened and cause chaos. And now it's after nightfall. I mean, this is one of these situations that could spin totally out of control, not just there, but exactly in Portland, Oregon, cities all over the country. And yes, Portland is still burning. There was just...
And Tim Walz, by the way, is already under fire.
Yeah, it's on fire.
Connected reporter busted him with this Somali daycare scandal and $90 billion and all of this, which I think it's kind of strange that was publicized so broadly and like so abruptly because it's been going on for a very long time. But they're looking to get Walz out, in my opinion, and usher Amy Klobuchar in. And when you go and you look at her AIPAC donation, $647 some odd thousand, I believe, for Amy Klobuchar that she's already taken from AIPAC. So it doesn't matter, red, blue, Republican, Democrat, male, female. Amy Klobuchar will be the next governor of Minnesota, and she's, of course, already sold out to these same people. So chalk that one up.
Yeah, and this Walz situation with the welfare fraud, I mean, it just goes right into this. The entire country, they've already got them pissed off at Tim Walz and pissed off at the Somalis and pissed off at the entire state government of Minnesota. So now you're going to have people thumping their chests and saying, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Replace him with this lady. There's no way she could be that corrupt.
Yep, and they
like
$600,000 from AIPAC. I mean, you're, if it's even possible, you're probably even worse than Tim Walz. I mean, it's a total nightmare scenario, but I think this is going to start going in city after city after city across the country. I mean, these immigration raids with ICE, these haven't been about mass deportations at all. 500,000 illegals deported, allegedly. According to independent studies, it was actually only around 350,000. But the Trump administration claims that around 500,000 illegals were deported in all of 2020.
Yeah,
we have 50
he's playing everyone, playing on their mind.
Plus all of the people who aren't illegal, but who are invaders, who are brought
in. These ICE raids are as much about illegal immigration and mass deportations as war with Venezuela is about going on the offensive in the war on drugs.
Yeah, it was all about what we saw today. It's all about engineering a situation like we saw today where a federal agent shoots somebody and then complete and total chaos ensues, not just there, but all over the country. And I think
and Venezuela is all about the BRICS NATO showdown and, you know, lighting the fuse for the powder keg that's about to blow off. And now today, the United States, you know, another operation. We've already stolen on the high seas Iranian oil tankers, Chinese oil tankers, and now today, I'm sure that you heard this, a Russian oil tanker.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and we're also running operations in Iran, so you throw Iran into the mix here directly. You know, Mike Pompeo has already come out and just admitted, just openly on X, yeah, the Mossad is in charge of these protests in Iran. They're staging a color revolution there. Obviously, the CIA is right there alongside them. These two people, these two groups, they don't move one without the other. And now Israel is coming out, the Israeli government, and saying this situation in Iran, it's not exactly going to work out for us. We're not going to be able to overthrow the government with this fake color revolution. The direct headline from Israel Hayom, one of the biggest Israeli media sites in the world, is that the Iranian regime is going to survive these protests, as they're calling them. Well, combine this with the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet just days ago approved new attack plans on Iran. We're looking now at not just a war in Venezuela, not just a war on the high seas, now a war directly in Iran. And of course, the United States is going to be along for the ride in all of this. And Iran plugs right back in there to Venezuela. They've been telling us for years that Iran has bases there, Hezbollah has bases there, Hamas has bases there. They say they've established sleeper cells in the United States because they've been allowed to be brought into these countries.
Yep.
So we have these things happening globally, we have them happening domestically, and it looks like they're really all going to collide here, and it's going to be an extremely dangerous situation for Americans, and American blood.
Drums of war.
Hey, it already has, we saw it today, but American blood is going to be spilt in all of this, which was always the plan. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's one domino after another. They just all fall into each other, and all of the framework, all of the groundwork, it was laid a very long time ago. And one of the people who's been responsible for laying a lot of the media hysterics around everything is Dan Bongino, who just quit the FBI after doing absolutely nothing but helping to hide the Epstein list, helping to cover for pedophiles, and claim that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself with a paper bedsheet in prison. You know, does everybody remember that hostage interview where Bongino and Patel are out there with their eyes bugging out of their heads like they're on 50,000 milligrams of meth, or they've got their handler in the corner with a gun pointed at them? I mean, these guys look incredibly unnatural, incredibly uncomfortable, saying, yeah, that's right, Epstein killed himself. Well, Dan Bongino, who told the world for 4 years, 5 years, oh, I'm going to get to D.C. When they bring Trump back in, I'm going to drain the swamp. We're going to arrest these pedophiles. We're going to arrest the election dogs. Orange jumpsuits for everybody. They're going to be paraded out right in front of everybody.
Yeah, I see them getting arrested.
And that didn't happen at all. Dan Bongino left the FBI. Now, of course, he's immediately back on his podcast. He's going to be making the Fox News rounds, the usual stuff you can expect. And over on X, this guy is getting absolutely destroyed. He's blocking Americans left and right because they're daring to jump into his comment section and say, hey, Dan, you know, whatever happened with the Epstein documents? Whatever happened with arresting the election fraudsters? Whatever happened with draining the swamp? You just went to D.C. and then you left. Your name is going to be worth nothing for generations. And
like everything else, though, Esau's being found out, right? You know, but it's all a play. It's a theater. You know, this is theater. But, you know, again, you know, this is what happened, right? You know, U.S. Immigration Agency, a.k.a. ISIS, shoots woman, Secretary of Homeland Security, accused the victim of domestic terrorism. Okay, she was a domestic terrorist, so it's cool. You just fucking shoot her in her fucking face. U.S. immigration officer shot woman dead in Minneapolis Wednesday, prompting protests and a tense stand-up between Democrat-run Minnesota and the White House. Yeah, see, they always have to bring in the Democrats versus the Republicans because, you know, it can't be anything else. You know, it can't just be people outraged at what's going on. You know, you have to either be a Democrat or Republican. No, you must be a Republican, you must be a Democrat. It's a left-right paradigm that they want you to believe. So, you know, here we go. Here's ISIS. Let's just shoot her in the fucking face.
No! No! Oh, shame! Shame! Oh my fucking...
Yep. Basically...
What the fuck? What the fuck? You just fucking... What the fuck?
Yep.
What did you do?
Yep, they can do that. And that was self-defense, by the way, because she was trying to escape. Really? You just didn't want to do a fucking car chase. That's what that's about. You know, so you can see the video for what it is. And I believe this is a staged event. I mean, it looks to me, because they want you to riot. They want, you know, because just like with George Floyd, etc., just like the man said before. So, you know, we'll play that again, because Richard from Boston's getting into it as well. You know, because that's another topic that's going on right now, you know, is this staged event, you know, false flag, etc., right? You know, because, again, the whole world is a stage. But they want people to riot. I mean, that's the whole reason. So they really slow this thing down. So what the fuck?
Fucking God! What the fuck? What the fuck? You just fucking what?
Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 7th. It's January. It's 2026. And I told you it was going to start off really fast in 2026 because these guys are on a clock. They got things to do. So far, the president has broken every international law and went to another country, allegedly, snuck in there, blew a couple of things up for effects. You know, you gotta have explosions or Americans won't watch. And went in and stole a dictator and his wife, who are happy to be here. It's all good. And now, as of right now, in Minneapolis, where the Mossad agent Nick Shirley was just there exposing Somalis, well, ICE has just shot and killed a woman in front of everybody. And this was
he said ISIS
they didn't have to shoot her in the head and kill her, but you know what? I'm pretty sure they were given the go-ahead because the result, the quid pro quo, will be violent riots. Things just stepped up exponentially. An American woman just got shot in the head, dead by ICE agents. This is by design, okay? Trump swooping in and stealing all the oil from Venezuela, allegedly, just got every other country that matters to start really looking for an option to the dollar. Trump just screwed us big time, but he's pulling the plug. I mean, it's all by design. Sometimes you get caught up in the production of it all, but Trump is a billionaire. I could be a millionaire by now, but I'm not because I give my money away many times to my own detriment. Trump ain't me. Trump became a billionaire not once but twice thanks to Israel, which is why he's a Zionist. You see what I'm saying? But Trump has opened us up for every scene in civil war and leave the world behind to come to fruition now. You know what I mean? The cover of The Economist magazine makes perfect sense now, doesn't it? Because all it shows is robots attacking people and blood spilling everywhere.
Yeah. So, like everything else, get past that intro.
And gave it to China, who then made the exact same tank and showed it off. And never got in any trouble for it. You know why? Nobody stole all of our war designs and all of our patents and all this. It was given to them by these politicians. These politicians are basically the mafia on steroids. All right? They don't give one shit about America. They don't care about any of us. They're globalists. Okay? America is just a great big area to rob and pillage, and that's exactly what they're doing, and you must understand that. There's no turning this ship around whatsoever at all. At all. This is getting insane. And then speaking of insane, I can't help but point your eyes to the skies. Eyes to the skies, everyone. NASA said, no, that's not me. That's the mainstream mimicker, Dabu 7, I was just making fun of because he's a complete joke, but I digress. So remember the green orb that I showed you? Literally coming out of the sky and entering the Missouri Arc. There it is. Well, here's another one that Minutes of Horror caught, and watch this green orb correcting. See it? Goes down and then goes up. Watch this. It's flying along. Taking a long time. Okay, here we go. Watch this.
We'll get more into the other.
This. Well, stand by. Somebody asked Grok if this video was real, and the video called a sundog. It's real. It's a real video. Of course it is. 30 people.
Alright.
AR10 at yahoo.com. And I got to say one thing. One of my subscribers that I'm supposed to have met already down in Florida, a guy named Brett, that's all I'm going to say, really stepped up out of the blue today and took a serious amount of weight off my shoulders. And I can't thank him enough, man. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy how God works. You know what I mean? And it's crazy when you really start focusing. Like I started focusing on my faith. Like,
all right, let's try to get to the point. You know, he sometimes can run on, but
remember that, or don't. Actually, I'm not outright just yet. I'm going to play 10 minutes of this video. This video is, I'm positive this is an AI channel. I'm messing with my mic. That's what all that noise is. Sorry. I'm positive this is an AI channel, but I listened to this entire thing today. And he's got the story right, except he's got the story wrong. He thinks the United States, that our government is trying to save the United States. He doesn't understand they're trying to destroy the dollar. And they're trying to, when all the smoke clears, all these politicians, everybody that caused the situation that us and all the other countries are in, they're going to bail. They're going to go in their underground bunkers. They're going to go to their islands. They're going to be out of there. We're going to be stuck here dealing with other countries that are going to just start smoking us, just like the cover of The Economist magazine said. But in the interim, this AI thing is right. So like I've told you a dozen times, So many people that listened to me 2 years ago when I started talking
either way,
about
though, an economic crash is going to come. So,
stayed loyal to the dollar too long. If you are a small oil exporter that kept pricing in dollars and kept reserves in treasuries, you just watched your reserves lose 20% of value. You could have diversified.
So, yeah, of course, they're crashing the economy. And the crash of the economy has everything to do with the ushering in of the MOTB. And there's a lot of that going on. And also, don't forget, Elon Musk has said that they would, bring that in. So, okay, he only went into that just a little bit about ISIS, because, again, this just happened, right? ISIS behind fatal Minnesota shooting, acted in self-defense. President Trump blamed the radical left protesters for the bloodshed. Oh, okay. You mean, yeah, you should never run away from the police. I mean, okay, that's a given. Yeah, they can do that. I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes. It's happened before, right? Okay, so yeah, you can do. The police can fucking shoot you if you try to run away. Now, I'll admit that a lot of the times they'll chase you, but I've seen them shoot people too. So, according to video of the incident, ISIS agent attempted to open the door of an SUV driven by Renee Good and fired multiple shots when she tried to drive away. Hey man, if you're not cooperating, they can shoot you. So, if you're ever fucking pulled over, don't try to get away. That's what this would tell you, right? Don't try to drive away. But this is exactly what had happened, But they want to spin the story so that way people protest. Don't get involved in protests. We tell you that. I know other groups like ISUPK, etc., like to tell you to go ahead and get involved in protests. Hey, this is not arrest. And like everything else, though, it may look like we do detest the things of Esau, but we're not going out there protesting. You're not going to see us doing camp in the middle of something like that. And like everything else, though, we're not shouting anti-Trump phrases or anything like that. We talk a lot about President Trump. But we're not telling people to overthrow the government or anything like that because we're not, as you would say, radicalized. But even though Esau would love to radicalize us, and he certainly can use AI to make it sound like we're sending that message, but that's not our message. Our message is to repent now while you still got time. He is in the place that the Most High put him in. You see, Esau is exactly where he's supposed to be. And it doesn't matter which clown wears the suit. It's all going to be the same. The Most High is in charge. And Esau's got a date with death. And like all empires, they fall after 250 years. So yeah, things are going to really pick up if you haven't seen it yet. Protest sweep U.S. as Trump administration defends ISIS in fatal shooting of woman. Mass protests spread across the U.S. after immigration customs enforcement, basically ISIS killed a woman in Minneapolis as Vice President Vance publicly defended the federal agencies, so we'll see some of this. Very well organized. So, if you're commuting and you see this in your cities, just continue to go on about your business, whatever you got to do, and then go back to your place. Don't get involved. Because I know a lot of brothers still have to go to work in the middle of all this stuff, but, more on this, right? Because riots, they want you to riot, Trump is definitely a provocateur, and he likes to get people riled up.
Some people are saying this is ICE agents dodging cars in Minnesota today.
Alright, this guy likes to use a little bit of comedy.
Probably, as the situation's getting pretty serious right now, as Tim Pool has declared the riots have begun. Have they? What is going to be happening next from here is, of course, a lot of people describe a powder keg-like situation as ICE gunned down a woman that was trying, according to some sources, run over an officer. This has created a situation where, of course, this young woman sadly has lost her life.
Looked like she was trying to escape.
I have a very nuanced take on this particular matter, but the propaganda is being laid on thick, as well as many politicians that are trying to use this situation for their own personal benefit, as the tear gas is pretty thick too, as right now the situation is devolving, and we hope and pray for everyone's safety and well-being, as of course it's pretty clear here that this is the George Floyd
That's why you don't get
that we've been anticipating and talking about for a very long time here on the
another one
ever since Trump got his political office. I was like, wait, the left is just waiting for one particular incident. This is a sad, unfortunate incident. I know there's like a lot of memes and a lot of laughter. That's how sometimes people deal with tragedy here, but I think we do deserve to have a serious conversation about this, because the circumstances to how this will devolve will have significant ramifications on everyone. If you appreciate these types of videos, subscribe.
So, like everything else, so, you know, you're just trying to get the pledges up, right?
The commentary is already toxic. It's already very partisan. But the situation unfolds where there is an ICE agent in front of this car. First, you see the car of the wheel go left as the agent is in front of the car. Then, as the car moves towards him and hits him and swipes him, he takes out his firearm. The car then turns the wheel right, and then shots are rendered. The thing moves very fast. You have to watch it in slow motion. But it is clear that the ICE agent was hit. Now, it's not clear whether this woman was trying to run him over or not. Was she panicking? Was she freaking out? Was she trying to run him over? We don't know. We don't know the motivations here. But people are pissed off because obviously a life was lost, and a lot of people believe this life should have been preserved, and there should have been more careful actions taken in order to prevent this life loss. Now, as someone who has a little bit of knowledge in these particular fields, it's a very tense situation, and we have to understand that ICE is under a lot of tremendous pressure. They have a lot of businesses boycott.
Yeah, and like everything else, so not a popular subject, and they're going to spin this, man. They're going to spin this, and yeah, it's staged for sure. But you don't just have protesting about that, right? You know, you got this going on because of Trump's moves, right? Yankees go home. Colombian protesters decry Trump's military threats. Protests in Colombia on Wednesday in several cities, including the capital Bogota, in response to President Petro's call for a day of national mobilization to defend the country's sovereignty, meaning that, okay, everybody needs to kind of stand together, you know, because, hey, you know, our neighbor Venezuela just got hit, man, you know, and, you know, we need to stand together in unity, right? I mean, anything goes down in Iran or in those other countries, right? Guess what? People do unite together. You know, even with all the shit they're trying to do to destabilize Iran, most of the people support Iran. You know, they support the Ayatollah. That's why coups generally do not work in Iran. And the same thing goes with these other countries, man. Waving the national flag, participants chanted slogans such as "Long live and free and sovereign Colombia." They also held signs reading, "The U.S. is the biggest threat to world peace. Yankees go home. Petro is not alone." So, you know, Colombian protesters said Trump is the devil. Well, at least they got that right. He's the most adherent person in the world, you know. Well, of course, Trump is the devil, you know. It's Esau Edom. He's the king of Babylon. And they know how bad he is. And like everything else, well, I guess they're supposed to have, you know, a nice conversation, right? U.S. leader invited Petro, whom he sanctioned last year, to visit the White House. So, well, just come on over here and we'll have a talk about this. U.S. President Trump spoken by phone with his counterpart Petro, whom he had earlier accused of drug trafficking and threatened an invasion. The two struck a conciliatory tone after a war of words that reignited following the abduction of Venezuela President Maduro and his wife by U.S. commandos during a raid over Caracas over the last weekend. So like everything else, though, you know, I guess they're supposed to meet, you know. Hey, Trump imposed sanctions on Petro last year and revoked his visa after the Colombian leader denounced what he called barbaric U.S. strikes against alleged cartel boats in the Caribbean, you know, because, again, remember, he was blowing up boats with no proof that they were even carrying narcotics, you know, but, you know, just for criticizing that, oh, well, we're removing your visa. Like you'd want to fucking visit this fucking place anyways. I mean, if you're somewhere else, stay as far away from Babylon as you can get, man. You know, and definitely don't be their ally. White House says it will dictate the decisions of the Venezuelan government. Well, of course. I mean, that's what it's about. You know, they're in control of Venezuela. The government of Venezuela is in charge of in our country. Yep. And no one else. There is no foreign agent governing in Venezuela, said Rodriguez, who called for the U.S. to free Maduro so he can return to his position, meaning that, okay, you know, calling for them to release him and bring him back, you know. Ain't gonna happen. We control the energy resources, and we tell the regime you're allowed to sell the oil so as long as you serve America's national interests. You're not allowed to sell it if you can't serve America's national interests. Vance. It's like he's openly admitting it. You have to serve the U.S. interests. See, that's what it's all about. President Trump is also threatening to bomb Venezuela again and potentially send troops if the government doesn't do the bidding of the U.S. He's like, hey man, look at what we did to your leader. And appears to threaten Rodriguez's life by saying she would face a fate worse than Maduro if she didn't fall in line. So it's like, get in fucking line. Do what we say. And that's just it though, is that, you see, he's getting bold about Greenland. So this is where it's getting exciting, you know. And we should be excited about this. U.S. oil majors prepare $22 billion bid to acquire Lukoil foreign assets at Infinitium. You know, because again, now that they have control over Venezuela, well, here's one of the first oil companies to step up. The proposed sale is subject to U.S. sanctions that compel Lukoil to divest its overseas assets and necessitate Treasury approval for any action. You know, so you got to go through the U.S. Customs now. Financial Times reported on the 7th of January that U.S. oil majors Chevron and Quantum Energy Partners are preparing a joint $22 billion bid to acquire Lukoil's overseas assets. A divestment U.S. officials favor as a permanent transfer of control to American operators at Infinitium. So these assets, refineries are in Italy, Netherlands, production stakes in countries such as Iraq, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and parts of Africa, as well as a global retail network of more than 2,000 fuel stations. So, pretty much so, you can see that the seizure of Venezuela oil has everything to do with the Greater Israel Project, because you notice that Iraq is mentioned in there. You know, so it's really about having control over the oil. Duh, that's the U.S. dollar, right? The petrodollar. Especially since Saudi Arabia said that they would be trading in more than just the dollar. They still traded with the dollar, but they also trade, you know, with the yuan and with other things. You know, they have, you know, they're not just limited to America, so that doesn't give America that superiority. So that's another reason for the heist right there, is because, again, Saudi Arabia is now a BRICS member as well as Iran. So, you know, that's just it. You know, these are all moves, heists being made. Lukoil has also indicated openness to a separate bid led by Zatellis Partners. However, the deal was blocked and the U.S. federal government refused to approve it. You know, because again, you know, this is about, you know, controlling oil and restricting what Moscow's allowed. Moscow repeatedly condemned the actions when the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov saying the episode shows that illegal trade restrictions imposed by the U.S. are unacceptable and hurt international trade. So, you know, pretty much so. This has been a tit for tat. And don't forget, you know, we can still see a response very soon, you know, because Russia did say it. They did say that, you know, since you seized our oil tanker, we could sink your ships too. You know, so, and I kind of thought that they might say something like that, and sure enough, they did. Satan Yahoo says Trump gave green light for possible attack against Lebanon. So there's another rumor war that they're going to go full throttle against Lebanon. Because remember, Hezbollah ain't fully, you know, so-called disarmed, right? You know, they didn't disarm Hezbollah, so they got full approval to go ahead and attack Lebanon. Because, see, there's a deal with Hayat al-Sham to take northern Lebanon and for Israeli state to permanently occupy the southern Lebanon. So it's being modified. New clashes hit Iran as opposition urges protests and strikes. So, like everything else, though, we definitely know that Mossad agents are behind this. But like everything else, though, people are coming in unity to get this thing taken care of. Iranian security forces used tear gas and live fire against protesters as demonstrators over the economic ties entered their 12th day, according to activists. Security forces used tear gas and live fire to disperse protesters in Iran, rights groups said Thursday, as people argued by economic crisis kept up their challenge to the authorities, and exiled opposition groups urged new protests as well as strikes. 12 days after protests shaken the clerical authorities under Ayatollah Khomeini, already battling economic crisis after years of sanctions and recovering from the June war against Israeli state. Authorities blamed the unrest on rioters, and the judiciary chief vowed that there would be no leniency in bringing them to justice. So, it just pretty much, though, it looks like that, okay, this thing is about to come to a halt, but we may still see an invasion, but I think that they're going to need to, if they do, it ain't going to last very long, because Iran is ready for just about anything anyways, because, they already know about their planned surprise attack, so they've been pretty much ahead on this thing, and they know who's behind it. I mean, they definitely know who the Zionists are. So, again, since that's the subject, we'll get down to Revelation chapter 17, because this is exciting. Because we're seeing it turn, and I urge everyone to finish watching Apostle Tahar's video. It's exciting, So like everything else, so all these places are going to come together, and they're going to turn on Babylon, so Revelation chapter 17, verse 15. Then the angel said to me, the waters which thou saw, where the prostitute is seated, aka Babylon, and peoples and multitudes, nations and languages, the 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these will hate the prostitute and make her desolate and naked, stripped of her power and influence, will eat her flesh and completely consume her with fire. When they turn the missiles upon this place, and they ultimately, have their way with Babylon, pretty much. For Yahweh has put it in their hearts to carry out his purpose by agreeing together to surrender their kingdom to the beast, becoming one, until the prophetic words of Yahweh will be fulfilled, to pretty much come together and burn Babylon with nuclear missiles. The woman which thou sawest is the great city which reigns over and dominates and controls the kings and the political leaders of the earth. And I have to say this, though, that we know that that's talking about America, that America is Babylon the Great. And one of the fallacies, one of those apostasies being taught, by these sellouts is that the Vatican, or that, that the Vatican is the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth, which is very much a farce. They don't even control every single religion. They control the organized religions of the world, which it plays its part in the false prophet, but definitely is not the city reigning over the kings of the earth. The kings of the earth, the Pope has a little bit of influence, but not that much. Popes in Rome might have had bigger influence in older wars, but, really just, it's just the religious false prophet area. Now, it definitely, when it talks about this place, Babylon the Great, being cast into the lake of fire, it does mention that the false prophet goes up with them, meaning the false religious system, which, aka America and its influence with plantation Christianity, which came through Catholicism, and that's the only connection really there between that, but that's not really connecting the Vatican, although you do have the Empire of the City, the three main areas, which does have Rome, Vatican, and London. I believe, London, D.C., and the Vatican, something like that. That's a whole other area. But that great city is talking about America, which is many cities, right? Because again, when you're seeing it, in prophecy, you were prophesied this 2,000 years ago, right? It's going to look like one major city, so that's why it's called the Great City, And that is talking about America. So hopefully all this has been edifying. This could be our year, man. Just, like everything else, we know what has to transpire, and a famine of the word will come, and eventually they're going to usher in the MOTB. And once that happens, it ain't going to take much longer. They're going to get close to getting everybody chipped. But, and once they do that, then the end comes. And we can't wait for that. So hopefully this has been edifying. For that I want to say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Bracha Thumb, Jehovah Elect, Shalom.